In the late 1980s, near the outskirts of Moscow, a man lived a life so ordinary that no one ever thought to question it. He had a regular job, a routine schedule, and no criminal past. He didn't look dangerous, he didn't behave strangely in public. He blended into the background of everyday Soviet life so well that he became almost invisible. And that invisibility would protect him for years. His name was Sergey Golovkin, but history would later remember him by another name, Fischer. Golovkin was born in 1959. From childhood, he was described as quiet, withdrawn, and socially awkward. He didn't form close friendships and preferred to stay alone. Teachers and classmates noticed he was different, but not in a way that seemed threatening. He wasn't aggressive. He wasn't disruptive. He was simply distant, watching the world from the sidelines. As he grew older, that distance only increased. As an adult, Golovkin found work at a horse breeding facility outside Moscow. It was a state-owned enterprise, the kind of place associated with trust and routine rather than danger. His job gave him structure, access, and a reason to be present in areas most people didn't question. To co-workers, he was strange but reliable, quiet but functional. Someone you noticed briefly and then forgot about. Towards the end of the 1980s, teenage boys began to disappear in the Moscow region. At first, there was no sense of urgency, no public alarm. The disappearances didn't follow an obvious pattern. Different ages, different locations, different circumstances. Many of the boys came from unstable or incomplete families, and when they vanished, authorities often assumed they had simply run away. In some cases, reports were delayed. In others, they were never filed at all. At that time, the Soviet Union publicly maintained that serial killers did not exist. The idea conflicted with the image of a tightly controlled society, where crime was manageable and predictable. Acknowledging a serial predator would mean admitting systemic failure, something the system was not prepared to do. As a result, each disappearance was treated as an isolated incident. Files remained separate. Patterns went unrecognized. Warnings were never issued. While the system denied the possibility of a predator, Fischer was learning how to move unnoticed. He was patient. He understood how to approach without alarming, how to speak calmly, and how to gain trust. He didn't act impulsively. He didn't rush. He avoided routines that might expose him. His actions were deliberate, controlled, and calculated to leave as little trace as possible. Investigations into the disappearances were slow and fragmented. Evidence was mishandled or overlooked. Leads were dismissed. In some cases, the focus shifted toward the victims themselves, rather than the circumstances of their disappearance. The assumption that there was no serial offender shaped every decision that followed. And that assumption created blind spots large enough for Fischer to operate within. What made Golovkin particularly dangerous was his ability to live a double life. During the day, he was a quiet employee, performing routine tasks, exchanging minimal conversation with co-workers. At night, he became someone else entirely, a person no one had imagined could exist within that ordinary exterior. He didn't stand out in crowds. He didn't draw attention on the streets. People passed him without a second glance. Colleagues later recalled that he was odd, but not alarming. He avoided eye contact. He spoke little, but in an environment where eccentricity was often ignored, those traits meant nothing. No one reported him. No one suspected him. No one imagined that the quiet man they worked beside could be connected to the growing number of disappearances. Years passed like this. Each unresolved case added to a growing list that no one fully examined. Each missed connection gave Fisher something invaluable: time. Time created by denial. Time created by bureaucracy. Time created by a system more concerned with maintaining order than confronting uncomfortable truths. Eventually, fragments of information began to surface. Separate cases were reviewed together. Similarities that had once been ignored became harder to dismiss. Locations overlapped. Circumstances repeated themselves. The image that formed was incomplete, but it was enough to challenge the official narrative. For the first time, investigators seriously considered the possibility they had long denied. Golovkin was not identified through a single dramatic breakthrough. There was no sudden revelation, no heroic moment. Instead, his carefully maintained normality began to crack under closer scrutiny. Small inconsistencies added up. Observations that once seemed irrelevant took on new meaning. Slowly, the invisible man became visible. When he was arrested, there was no public spectacle, no resistance, no attempt to flee. Golovkin remained calm, almost detached. During interrogation, he showed little emotion. He spoke in a controlled manner, as if the outcome had been inevitable all along. To investigators, his lack of reaction was unsettling. The man they were questioning did not appear frightened or shocked. He appeared resigned. As the case unfolded, it became clear that Golovkin's story was not just about one individual. It was about the environment that allowed him to exist undetected for so long. A system built on denial had failed to protect those who were most vulnerable. By refusing to acknowledge the possibility of a serial killer, it had created the perfect conditions for one to operate. Sergey Golovkin became the last person executed in the Soviet Union. His execution marked the end of a legal era, but it did not erase the questions his case raised. How many warning signs were missed? How many chances were there to stop him earlier? And how much damage was caused by the simple refusal to believe that someone like him could exist? The most disturbing aspect of this story is not the image of a monster hiding in the shadows. It is the image of an ordinary man moving through everyday life, unnoticed and unchallenged. A man who fits so well into the background that no one thought to look twice. The story of Fisher is not just a historical case. It is a reminder that danger does not always announce itself. It does not always look threatening. Sometimes it looks normal. Sometimes it looks familiar. And sometimes it goes unnoticed until the damage is already done. This was the story of Sergey Golovkin, a man hidden in plain sight, and a system that failed to see him until it was too late.